my guests today on the show, already having a fantastic debate today, Matt Dillahunty and David Robertson. Matt Dillahunty hosts the Atheist Experience out in Austin, Texas. And David Robertson, my Christian guest here in the studio with me, is the director of the Solas Center for Public Christianity.
He said that he's not an atheist because of Auschwitz. And this baffles me because I don't know what Auschwitz has to do with atheism at all. So feel free to expound on that.
Yeah, sure. Well, because if you are an atheist in the sense of, let's say, Richard Dawkins, a naturalist, materialist, you do as Dawkins says, there's no such thing as good and evil in the universe. The universe has all the properties that we'd expect if there was no such thing as good and evil. I was fascinated by, and I studied the Holocaust, Nazi Germany, why the most advanced, culturally scientific, cultural nation in the world could end up doing the Holocaust. And I've been to Auschwitz. I don't think I would go again. I just found it just absolutely horrendous. And the problem there for me, initially I started off saying, well, there can't be a God because he wouldn't allow all this bad stuff to happen. But then I got really stuck because I looked and thought, well, how do I know it's bad? How can I say it's bad if we're just chemicals who happen to have evolved over a long period of time, and morality is just a social construct and so on? If there is, as Dawkins says, no good and evil, then how could I say that Auschwitz is evil? That's just my brainwashing, the way I've culturally been brought up. And I realized, no, it's not. And so the whole question of evil does not make sense without, in my view, a biblical worldview. Dawkins himself says that to have an absolute morality is virtually impossible without religion. So I actually think the existence of evil is actually, and my awareness of evil is actually an indication of God. I mean, it makes it impossible for me to actually be an atheist. If I'm an atheist, then I just have to accept evil as just something natural.
Actually, no, you don't. I mean, really what you're talking about is the moral argument, the problem from evil. The idea that good and evil aren't things, that they're not extant things, is pretty common. But I'm not a moral relativist. I'm not portraying a view as you have adopted or have claimed that atheism adopts, that morality is just opinions or social constructs and things like that. That's not my view. And moreover, the view that I espouse, which is I've talked about in my lecture on secular morality and the fact that it's the only moral system, is consistent with humanism, which would absolutely make something like the Holocaust not impossible, because people can still do things, but it is absolutely in conflict with the idea of a Holocaust. This idea that humans have value and that we determine morality based on real physical facts. We are physical beings in a physical universe. When we're talking about morality, we're talking about well-being. And killing people, killing 6 million people, slaughtering 6 million people is obviously, flatly in conflict with well-being, both of those individuals and of the society as a whole. I mean, nothing could be more clear. We don't need to make an appeal to, as a matter of fact, appealing to a God to say this is why this is wrong causes even more problems, because God could decide tomorrow that slaughtering 6 million people is okay.
Okay, let's just let David respond. So as far as Matt's concerned, it's obvious. For the well-being of people, you don't go slaughtering them. What's the problem, David? Why isn't that obvious? Why would you need to invoke God to understand that? Well,
first of all, I wouldn't need to invoke God, but I think I'm always wary of fundamentalists saying something is obvious. I think we have to look and say, well, why is it obvious? Obvious to whom? So, for example, if you had been brought up in Weimar Germany and you believed that the Jews were rats and that they were harming society, if you'd been brought up in a theory of social Darwinianism which taught that the weak should be eradicated, then why not? If you live in a society which says, look, an unwanted child is no good, so let's kill it in the womb, let's kill 20 million or whatever, then you will do that. So when I'm always wary when atheists and secular humanists say it's obvious, because what they mean is their position is the obvious one. And to me, it's not obvious.
It's not obvious to you that, I mean, I don't mean to use obvious as just the reason, I mean, that was just the shortcut, but it's not obvious to you that killing people is against their well-being? I mean, how else could you define well-being if it doesn't preclude being slaughtered?
Well, that's true. That's interesting. So you would say that it was against the well-being of the child in the womb to kill it?
Well, yes.
So you'd be against abortion then?
No.
So you think that that killing the child in the womb is against the well-being of the child, but you're for that?
Did I say I was for it?
You said you weren't against it. And basically with abortion, it's like it's like your thing with agnosticism. You say you either believe or you don't believe. You either think abortion is correct or you think it's wrong.
I'm actually pro-choice.
Yeah, so you think, but so being pro-choice, you've just told me that you think killing the child in the womb is against the well-being of the child, but nonetheless
yes.
you are pro being able to do that.
Yes.
So there are some circumstances in which killing someone is actually okay. That's what you're saying.
Yes. Lots of them.
So your whole argument against me was: is it not obvious to you that killing someone is against their well-being is completely superfluous? Because you've just admitted it is okay.
You're going to avoid this obvious example. I'm only talking about this situation.
Yeah, but I am talking about instead of putting yourself in your own mindset, put yourself in the mindset of someone who grew up in Nazi Germany, or in Weimar Germany, and then it became Nazi Germany, and they have been taught that the Jews are rats, that the Jews were the result of Germany losing the First World War, that the Jews are the result of them being unemployed, that the Jews are a cancer on society, that mankind is evolving, and all the rest of it.
You asked me earlier to put myself in the mindset of someone in that time, in that era, which is, once again, you appealing to moral relativism, as if just because it's their mindset, it's factual, and that precludes the possibility that people can be wrong about their moral opinions, which is
absolutely.
I don't think you'll find any argument from David on that, though.
Absolutely, they can be wrong about their moral opinions. Now, I would argue when I look at the different philosophies and the different worldviews, an atheistic worldview either ends up completely illogical, or complete hubris, or complete madness. Where the Christian worldview, for me at least, makes sense of morality and evil. Do you actually accept there's such a thing as evil?
As a thing?
No.
Good
as
and
a
evil
concept, even.
Good and evil are labels that we apply to situations, to consequences, in comparing them to particular values. Now,
yeah, Matt. I mean, you basically you handed me a rope to hang you every time you speak because you keep saying comparison. And what comparisons are we making? I mean, first of all, the question I'll come back to you. I want to make something, but the question I want to come back to is the definition of good, because you say we know what good is. How do we know what good is? What if people have different definitions of good? But anyway, here's the question that I would want to ask, and it's a question I was asked by the president of the Atheist and Agnostic Society, wonderful title, in Cambridge University, and it was in a debate. And he said, and he quoted Bertrand Russell, actually. After the Second World War, on the BBC, Russell said this: Dachau, the concentration camp, Dachau is wrong, is not a fact. Gravity is a fact. But Dachau is wrong, is not a fact. I think it's wrong, but I can't prove it. Would you agree with that statement?
I don't know.
Well, take a stab. Where are you on that one?
Wow. Okay. I didn't know that saying I don't know and actually pausing to think is thinking not allowed. I mean,
thinking's allowed, but
okay.
saying I don't know it's a fairly straightforward question. It's like when you on your program you ask people questions. If they go to you I don't know, you usually mock them.
Well, what seems to not be allowed is anything other than an actual answer. It may be the case that the answer should be we don't know or we don't know yet. Now, Bertrand Russell's statement about Dachau is wrong is not a fact. I'd have to know a little bit more about the context in which he was saying that to know whether or not I agree. I think I tend to agree in the context that I think he meant it, but I may actually disagree with what he was saying, because I am of the opinion that because there are physical truths. Now, see, the trouble word here is wrong, and that's what I'm talking about with regard to Russell's context. Dachau is in conflict with the idea of well-being of both those individuals and society. Is a fact that is put forth by the idea that we are physical beings under the influence of physical laws, and so what hurts us is merely a physical fact about the universe. There's nothing, as a matter of fact, appealing to anything else would be in violation of methodological naturalism.
Okay, I'll come back to that. I mean, the questions and answers thing. I do think questions deserve an answer. I think it's fair enough for us to say, yeah, I'm thinking about it and I don't know, so I accept that.
Yeah, it is a version of the moral argument, which is really just kind of an appeal to consequences. David kept referring to these ideas about moral relativism, which I happened to reject, although other atheists are moral relativists and accept it. So this idea about morality seems to be at a minimum in an unsolved state. And so, my view of David's take on this morality thing is I just don't want to live in a world that might be like this. So that is good enough reason for me to believe in God. And for me, that's simply not the case.
I'm intrigued. I mean, one thing I'm absolutely delighted, Matt, that you believe in moral absolutes. I just want to know where you get them, where they come from.
That's really easy. When I talk about moral absolutes and my rejection of moral relativism, I'm still talking about situational morality. And so in any given situation, there is a finite set of actions.
Yeah, there is.
Okay.
Well, actually, no, in the multiverse, they're infinite, but never mind. Carry on.
Yeah, I'm trying to stay in reality.
Okay, yeah, well, so am I. That's why I'm not an atheist. Carry on.
Carry on.
There's a finite set of possible actions, and we can compare the consequences of those actions to each other with respect to in this case, when I was talking about morality, the value of well-being. And so some of those actions are going to be better than others, which means that that there is some set of one or more actions for a specific situation that represent a moral pinnacle. And the only thing that we need to have this absolute morality within the situation is the fact that we are physical beings in a physical universe and that we can compare the consequences of an action with the consequences of another action and then line them up.
Okay, well, you've just demonstrated again why I can't be an atheist, because you say you've got two things there. One is your faith. We can compare. You think we have the ability. Who is the we? What if we disagree? If you're in Saudi Arabia comparing, or if you're in Russia right now at the Sochi Olympics or whatever and comparing, that might be different from if you're in Texas comparing. So I think that ends up just being relativistic rather than the absolute standard that you're talking about.
I just described the opposite of relativism, but
no, it's not. But it does, because when you say we can compare, who's the we? Who's the we?
Well, I was getting to that before I was interrupted. Yeah. In the sense that for each situation, the determination of well-being has a number of potential conflicts. Better for me, better for you, better for us. Who's doing the deciding? And those are the areas where we still have work to do. This is the process of convincing people, just like it's when you're teaching your kid why something is wrong. It doesn't do any good to say it's wrong because God said so. Your rejection of my position has nothing to do with atheism. This is my view of morality. Atheism is merely a position on the existence of God. It doesn't say anything at all about morality. There's no requirement to accept my view of morality in order to identify as an atheist. And when you list your rejection of my view of morality as a reason why you can't be an atheist, it demonstrates that you don't understand what an atheist is and why this is the default position with regard to the claim.
You're talking about morality, you're talking about experience, you're talking about everything else. And I just think your whole position is entirely self-contradictory. You started with saying, well, obviously killing 6 million people is demonstrably wrong. And I'm saying, yes, obviously it is. How is it obviously? How do we get there? I mean, the Dachau question, I was asked that question, my answer, and I'll finish with my answer, and then you get the chance to wind up, I think. I just said simply, Dachau is wrong is a fact. It depends where you start. And I start with this. You go out and you rape my 14-year-old daughter. I know that that's wrong. And then I ask, why is it wrong? Why is it wrong? Why is it wrong? Why is it wrong? And ultimately, I have to come back to an absolute morality, an absolute law, an absolute lawgiver. That's God. The atheist starts with the presupposition either that there is no God or that we can't know that there's a God. You said you couldn't say that, you weren't saying that there was possibly a God. So, and then says, well, how can we say what's right and wrong? And you come up with this, we compare this and we compare that. But logically, it just falls apart because it depends who the we is. Because it depends who the we is. Because it depends who the we is. evil does not make sense, without a biblical worldview. The existence of evil and my awareness of evil is actually an indication of God, If I'm an atheist, then I just have to accept evil as just something natural. An atheistic worldview either ends up completely illogical, or complete hubris, or complete madness. Where the Christian worldview makes sense of morality and evil. You believe in moral absolutes. I just want to know where you get them, where they come from. You say, we can compare. Who is the we? And what if we disagree? How do we know what good is? What if people have different definitions of good? How can we say what's right and wrong? And you come up with this, we compare this and we compare that. But logically, it just falls apart because it depends who the we is.